The New Zealander is a great showman both inside and outside the octagon. UFC bosses like it, and they're clearly preparing him for the status of a rising star. So, at least some of the experts who noted that Adesanya's drummer is not given opponent wrestlers. For this, the undeniably talented Israel gets the offensive nickname, Prospect. In the language of sports, this means that influential people in the industry are not interested in losing a certain fighter and are trying to give him an even bigger record in every possible way. Hello fighters! With you MMA Iron Channel in this video, I will talk about the shocking fights of Israel Adesanya. But before starting this video, do not forget to subscribe to the channel and put a like, but so that this video begins to move rapidly. A Nigerian by birth, Israel moves with his parents to distant and beautiful New Zealand. At the time of the change of country, he is only 10 years old. Before that, he had been engaged in martial arts for 2 years in order to be able to defend himself. Upon arrival, he did not give up the hobby. Despite the fact that his parents wanted him to get a higher education, Adesanya found his vocation in another, kickboxing. Although he carried his love for Japanese anime and comics with him throughout his life and even made it his chip, the tall and lanky young New Zealander seriously declared himself in the professional ring and at one time was among the 10 strongest in the world. At the same time, Adesanya is a productive fighter and does not spare himself. In parallel with the main hobby, he also performed in professional boxing and mixed martial arts. At UFC 236, there was a fight for the interim middleweight title between New Zealander Israel Adesanya and American Kelvin Gastelum. Their fight was the co-main event of the evening and turned out to be very dramatic and rich in bright moments. The fighters began the first round with careful reconnaissance, but soon Gastelum began to successfully reduce the distance and get Adesanya with a left cross. The New Zealander had no answers. He only punched weak low kicks and threw out a jab. Towards the end of the first round, Kelvin rushed at Israel and took out his powerful right hook. The New Zealander lost his balance and fell with his back to the net, but Gastelum could not take advantage of the advantage. In the second round, Adesanya was able to gather himself and became more active. He punched accurate deuces and knocked Gastelum down twice, the American barely surviving to the end of that round. The third and fourth rounds were a success for both fighters, but it was noticeable that Gastelum's gas tank was almost empty. They exchanged hard blows. Gastelum even had one successful takedown, but could not do anything with Adesanya in the stalls. In the fifth final round, Adesanya, to the surprise of all those gathered, found additional strength in himself and began to press a tired Kelvin. He shot back as best he could, but the New Zealander's more accurate combinations increasingly shattered Gastelum's face. Kelvin eventually fell into a knockdown. Adesanya attempted a guillotine, but it didn't work. Then Israel began to simply hammer Gastelum with his hands. The referee already wanted to stop the fight, but the American was saved by the final gong. As a result, Israel Adesanya celebrated the victory by unanimous decision, becoming the interim middleweight champion. At Marvel Stadium in Melbourne, the main event of UFC 243 ended, in which middleweight champion Robert Whittaker and interim belt holder Israel Adesanya met to identify the sole ruler of 185 pounds. Whittaker began the fight more actively than his opponent. He worked hard with stomps and hooked Adesanya from time to time with a left hook. The interim champion waited more, trying to counterattack. Robert charged in each of his blows, rushing at an opponent with a series of 3 or 4 such blows in the hope of dumping Adesanya on the canvas. But it turned out to be the opposite. It was Adesanya who managed to knock the champion down, catching him with a right hook at the end of the opening 5 minutes. In the second round, the fighters continued to exchange blows. Whittaker began to add high kick to his combinations, which his opponent quite easily dodged. At a certain point, Robert again decided to try his luck at close range, but Adesanya, having endured one of his blows steadfastly, responded with 2 accurate hooks that fell directly into Whittaker's jaw and put an end to his championship. After long days of thrash current, the athletes were finally in the cage. Costa looked much larger than his opponent. Adesanya seemed to be a fighter of a different weight class next to the swinging Brazilian. The fight began in the expected way. Costa slowly approached the technical retreating Adesanya. Boricina acted boldly, but in the first round, he failed to get the defending champion's punches. Israel, on the other hand, fired hard low kicks at his opponent's legs, carefully monitoring Costa's attacks. Periodically, Adesanya himself went forward, invariably being more accurate and faster than the challenger. Costa's legs were covered with abrasions, which slowed down Boricina's pressure somewhat. In the second round, Adesanya finally seized the initiative, tearing the Brazilian's defense with quick and strong blows on the floors. Costa tried to remain calm after one of the high kicks of the champion, even depicting with his tongue sticking out the state of the knockdown. However, Boricina's affairs were bad. He completely stopped hitting Adesanya, but constantly took hard blows with his legs and hands. In one of the exchanges, Israel finally knocked Costa down with a mighty side kick from the left, after which he finished off the challenger with a multitude of punches. In Melbourne, Australia, the UFC 234 tournament ended, in the main event of which a kind of clash of 2 generations of middleweights of the organization took place. Undefeated 29-year-old prospect Israel Adesanya battled legendary 43-year-old Spider Anderson Silva, who in the past was the sole leader and hegemon of the UFC midfield division. The fighters spent the first round rather cautiously, but Adesanya managed to demonstrate that the Spider's reflexes are no longer as sharp as before and brought several blows from the hands to the target. Silva managed to snatch only one short episode from Israel. In the second 5 minutes, Anderson stepped up and brought several counterattacks to the target and was also more effective in the offensive, which he realized through all sorts of feints. Adesanya noted that Silva practically does not defend against low kicks, which he willingly used, simultaneously taking out the head of the former champion with blows from his hands. In the final round, Israel relied on attacks on the body, which led Silva into some confusion. Missing shots, Anderson began to openly brag, luring the opponent to himself, but this did not bring results. Adesanya repelled all the counterattacks of the Spider and continued to build up the advantage. Unfortunately, and perhaps fortunately, Silva failed to perform a sporting miracle. Only one of the 3 referees thought he was better in the second round, while the other 2 judges gave all 3 rounds to Adesanya.
This question's for Izzy. After you beat the brakes of Jared Kennedy, do you think you're going to knock out either Alex Pereira or Sean Strickland after?
I look forward to either one of those fights. And people try, I don't like this narrative of like, oh, it's too quick. It's too quick for Pereira. But look, Jiri just fought for the belt and won the belt on his 3rd fight in the UFC. I think Anderson did in the 2nd fight. So that's fine. He's new to MMA. I've been in this game for a long time. And this TikTok generation has 15-second memory, so they forget. All they see is a knockout, but they didn't watch the first fight or even watch the second fight before the finish. So this is not kickboxing. This is mixed martial arts. And these ain't big pillow gloves. These are 4-ounce deadly weapons, and I can't wait to drive that through his face after I go through Jared Cannonier.